Hi, good morning, Dr. Lisa King, aka the Fulfilled Pharmacist. Thank you so much for being here in the show and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. But I will say I don't have a PharmD. I'm old school. I have a Bachelor of Science in Pharmacy. So thank you for saying doctor, but I'm one of the old timers, seasoned pharmacist, as you may say. So I have a Bachelor of Science.
Got it. Okay, so just Lisa King then. No
Yes,
less
just Lisa King.
impressive. All right, so welcome to the show, Lisa King,
Thank you.
the Fulfilled Pharmacist. First of all, can you just give us a little brief introduction and background about yourself?
My name is Lisa King, as you mentioned, and I've been a pharmacist for 32 years now. So I always wanted to go into medicine, but my theory back when I was, in my late teens, I didn't want to touch anybody. So I thought, well, pharmacy is kind of the perfect way to go. So I became a pharmacist. I always loved it. I have a Bachelor of Science. The PharmD was optional back when I was at the University of Arizona. And when I first started, barely anybody was getting a PharmD. But by the time I graduated, about half my class got their PharmD. I did not, because I was married to my high school sweetheart. I was already married for 2 years when I graduated. So I just wanted to get on with working. I've always worked retail and just recently left the pharmacy. I'm just working PRN now and just concentrating on doing things online. So I'm super happy to be here. And I've always just loved being a pharmacist. So thank you for having me.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, your journey is certainly super inspiring. You have a big social media following and you also have an area of expertise. So why don't you also tell us a little bit about where you grew up? You also kind of mentioned why you went into pharmacy, but where you lived and any moving around that happened.
I'm actually from New York. I'm from Staten
Oh,
Island, New York.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't been there in many years, but we moved to Arizona when I was 12. So back then, Arizona was kind of uncharted territory. And my parents, my grandparents, and some aunts and uncles had come out here on a trip. And my parents moved out here sight unseen. They were just thinking they wanted a better place to raise their children that was warmer, where we could be outside. So I've always loved it here, despite our dry heat. Um, so my grandmother, who I grew up with when I was in Staten Island, she just always loved her pharmacist too. So I always tell everybody that she wanted everybody to become pharmacists, but I was the only one who listened to her. And I'm glad that I did. But I just met my husband when I was 16. And just always had like a passion for math, science, that type of thing. And pharmacy was just the perfect fit. Went down to the University of Arizona and then had my first son right after I graduated. So I started working. I only worked full time during my pregnancy and then went to working part-time, started having children. My kids are actually very spread in age. So they go from 30, and my oldest son just had his first child, so I'm a grandmother now. And my youngest is 16, and he's on spring break, so he's still sleeping. So, yeah, so I've got quite a wide range.
And you said 3 kids or
3 boys, yeah, and then I have a middle son in between who's also married. I have 2 older boys and then my younger son.
Wow, wow, congratulations.
Thank you. And that was one of the reasons I decided to step out of the pharmacy. I had been a working mom for 29 years. So just juggling schedules, that type of thing. And I really just wanted to spend more time with my granddaughter. So I have her at least one day a week, and I'm having a lot of fun with her, especially having a girl after having 3 boys. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. I have a little boy myself. So
Oh, you do? Oh, how
yeah,
fun.
yeah.
How old is he?
He's 2. He just turned 2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Such a fun age.
yeah. So tell us a little bit. You said you worked retail. Was it always one store or one chain, or did you also move around there?
I've actually only worked for 2 different chains in my whole career, which is kind of unbelievable, really. And the funny thing is, the first chain I worked out actually bought out the place I'm working now. So really, technically, I've only worked at one spot. I did, when I had my youngest son, Danny, I did wind up taking 4 years off. It was somewhat unintentional, but my husband was traveling a lot at the time, and just having with teenagers who I needed to get to baseball. They were both baseball players, having a little one at home. It was just too much for me to work at the time. So I did take that 4 years off, but I've always worked retail. The funny thing about me being online as the fulfilled pharmacist is one of the questions I often get is, are you really a pharmacist? And I often think, well, yes. I mean, it's not a very glamorous job. So I don't know if like anybody would say they were pharmacists if they really weren't, but they also think, oh, well, she must have a really glamorous type of pharmacy job if she is a pharmacist, you know, compounding or consulting or something like that. But I've always worked retail. I was actually just asked this question. I wanted to work retail because I just really love that connection with my patients. And so luckily the last 25 years has been in grocery retail in a bit of a slower setting. So we're also a preceptor site there. And that was one of the comments that we always get from our students when they're filling out their review, is that it's kind of like an old time pharmacy. We know every patient's name. We get to chat with our patients. So it's been a great way to practice pharmacy.
That's really nice. Yeah, I can totally relate because I do the same thing, except I work in an independent. So it's
Oh, nice.
definitely, yeah, it's definitely slower paced and we know everybody. And
Exactly. Yeah, that is really wonderful. I'm just working as needed right now. I'm not even in the float pool, but they will call me if they need some help. And I may be working with an independent one day a week that I talk to. So that may be in my future coming up this summer. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
yeah. So what gave you the idea to call yourself the fulfilled pharmacist? You know, what is that all about? And then how did you end up specializing in bladder health?
Well, what happened with that, the funny thing is, I don't know, one day I just decided I was going to be on Instagram and talk about health and wellness because I just love sharing that whether I'm in the pharmacy or not. And I honestly didn't even know what Instagram was. I thought it was a filter that you put on your phone to make your pictures look pretty. So I don't even know what I was doing there, but that was about 3 years ago. And I didn't have a name. And years ago, about 10 years before that, I thought, well, maybe I'll start a blog called The Fulfilled Pharmacist. And I had registered the name, but never did anything with it. And so really now what I say is I'm all about disease prevention. So for me, it's not about living just a long life. It's about living a long and fulfilled life. So that's kind of where the Fulfilled Pharmacist comes in. And I guess it's been 3 years now. My sister and I wrote a book together. It's called Tiny Life Changes. It's about achieving your goals and dreams one step and one day at a time. And from that, we just wanted to really put pen to paper to share some difficult times that we both had gone through. My sister's a breast cancer survivor, and she had her double mastectomy when she was 35. I had gone through the downturn of 2008 and just really delved into self-development through that time. And those were difficult times for both of us at about the same time. So we just really wanted to share about that through the book.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, I wound up going on a lot of different podcasts talking about the book. But during that time, someone had found out, I had shared maybe once, that I was diagnosed with interstitial cystitis when I was 28. And so from there, I was able to create an environment of healing in my body to help my body heal, to not have that bladder pain anymore. And so even at the pharmacy, when someone had overactive bladder or recurrent UTIs, interstitial cystitis, I was kind of always the go-to, like, you know, Lisa, can you help this lady? Or even if it was my day off, they'd say, you know, someone just came in, they'd leave me a note, can you get back to her? So it was kind of always my specialty. And when I started sharing more and more about this on podcasts, at first I was like, oh gosh, why do I even need to talk about this? It's in my past. It was such a painful time. I just wanted it to be gone. But I started getting more and more questions online from women, a lot actually, who had recurrent UTIs or overactive bladder, some interstitial cystitis. And I started just talking to them. And I talked to a friend who is a business coach, and she's like, I think you really need to put something together to kind of help these ladies and teach them what you did yourself to heal your own body through diet, mindset, lifestyle changes. And so that's where my course for ditchbladderpain.com came in. So, and I've been doing that not quite a year yet. So, so that's been a really wonderful journey for me too, being able to share this information with women.
Wow. Yeah, that's brilliant. Just turning your lemons into lemonade, so to speak.
Yes, and I did when I wrote the book with my sister. My sister is a life coach. I did get my life coaching certification. So, what makes me a little bit different when I talk to these ladies is since I'm a life coach as well, it's really just all about moving forward in their healing journey. Just what can we do to keep moving forward and not going backwards into that pain and frustration, and just keep moving forward. Because when I was diagnosed, I think it was both a blessing and a curse, but there was no internet. So I didn't have any access to a lot of information. But because of that, also, I didn't have access to so many women sharing their stories saying, you know, I've been in pain for 20 years. I've never gotten better, or someone's newly diagnosed and they go into a group where all these women are sharing about their pain, and they become very frustrated and scared, like, oh, is this going to be me? In 20 years, is this going to be me? So what I'm trying to do, my hope really is to give hope to these women that you can heal. And in the IC community, there's myself and several other people who have been able to create this environment of healing and move forward. And so we're all kind of work together in sharing our stories and just kind of being a positive voice for IC, that you can really go on to start feeling better and heal your bladder.
Yeah, that's a really important place to hold for people to be able to support and understand what they're going through because you've gone through it.
Yes.
And you know, really, Western allopathic medicine doesn't really offer a lot of solutions in this particular area. So, what does your course look like? If you can give us a little hint, and what kind of things are the major things that you would suggest? Like, is it lifestyle, diet? Is it supplements? Is it exercise? Is it herbs? Like, what was your combination that led to healing for you?
Well, for me in particular, you know, this was back in the day, so I didn't do a lot of research on herbs, different things, but there are different supplements that I do recommend to women that can be very helpful in soothing the bladder. Basically, my course is 3 different levels of beginning, intermediate, and advanced dietary, lifestyle, and mindset changes. So the IC diet, the interstitial cystitis diet, is really the mainstay of getting started on bladder healing. So I help people with that. A lot of women that I talk to, even though they've had interstitial cystitis for years, they may not really have a clear understanding of the diet. And even some ladies I've talked to will talk to someone who maybe is very knowledgeable about supplements and advise them on a lot of supplements, but they're not good supplements for women who have IC. So we'll kind of look at that type of thing, clear up, you know, some of the supplements that they're on if I'm working with someone. But then I'm really also about like affirmations, mindset. For me, I was on the interstitial cystitis diet, taking medication. I was even having bladder installations, and I did have several, like 2 really bad flares. And during my second flare, I was thinking, you know, something just has to change. I had a very, very severe case of IC. That's the other thing people may not realize. Since I'm better now, they may think, well, her case probably wasn't that bad. It was very severe. I was urinating every 15 minutes. I was in horrific pain. It felt like there was a knife inside of me. I was raising 2 toddlers at the time, still working, believe it or not, through this. Luckily, I had a very understanding staff. So I'd be running back and forth to the bathroom all day. There's not a lot of counseling back then, luckily. But really, what was the icing on the cake for me in my healing is when I went to a healer. So my mom, we were kind of just grasping at straws, had met this woman who said that she would help me with healing. And really what it was just a healing meditation where I visualized myself inhaling a light and then letting it swirl in my bladder, picturing my bladder healing, and then just breathing out. And I did this every single day. And right before I picked my kids up from school, I would spend at least a half hour, and sometimes I would even fall asleep. But I just feel like that's what my body needed.
Mm.
And really, that's what I try to share with women, that with a busy lifestyle, myself as a pharmacist, type A personality, raising children, I wasn't allowing myself that time to heal. And so really from the healing meditation, I just feel like that is what really took me to the place where I am now. That was like the icing on the cake, I always say. So that's what I tried to share with women, to allow themselves that mindset, that mindfulness, and belief in healing, as well as everything else that they're doing as well.
Wow. Yeah, that's really powerful. And can you just share a little bit about what the IC diet looks like? Because I have personally not even heard of that.
Oh, it's pretty restrictive. And so that's another thing. It comes with a lot of frustration because a lot of women don't know what to eat. And this was my case as well. So the interstitial cystitis diet is somewhat very complex, and you can find the foods to avoid in my free gift on my website, ditchbladderpain.com. But basically, no acidic foods, no spicy foods, no caffeine, no chocolate, no alcohol, no fermented foods, no carbonation. So even though you could have, a piece of fish and broccoli or something like that, a lot of women are just so afraid to eat anything that they really restrict what they eat. And so for me, that looked like just having bread and water. So, and I'll talk to other women who say, well, I'm only eating really rice and water, because you're just so afraid to eat anything. But what happened when I started having the bread and water was, first of all, there's no nutritional value. So I'm completely exhausted. I'm not, building up my body to heal. It's completely inflammatory. So we'll talk about things like that as well, what they should be eating, kind of getting over that fear of what they can eat. But it is tricky. I mean, there's just so many little nuances and facets to it. Like for me, Chinese food would put me over the edge because the sodium in there, it was like putting salt on a wound. And so even for some women, having chicken, which may be, basted in like salt, like when they preserve it, that can really cause like bladder irritation. So a lot of women find like a plant-based diet really helps. But, just learning your trigger foods. Some foods trigger some women, some don't. So you kind of have to just listen to your own body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that reminds me of the foods that irritate the lower esophageal sphincter. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and also sugars, I would imagine.
Yes, sugar, as that's another sugar and artificial sweeteners. But yeah, sugar is very irritating. I have talked to one lady who, was following some of my suggestions, and she's like, it actually helped my irritable bowel. So yeah, it's just more of a healing diet to just kind of eliminate a lot of inflammatory foods. But from there, in my course, we'll also go past the IC diet, talking more about reducing those inflammatory foods, eating foods that are better for nutritional value, that type of thing, moving past that. Because, sometimes foods that are not on the IC diet, like bread and rice and things like that, they'll say, okay, you can have these, but that's not really always the best thing for healing your body.
Yeah. And also when you said bread and water, I also pictured like constipation issues.
Yes, yes. Yes, things were definitely not moving, I see it's now thought to be autoimmune. So there's a lot of other things that go along with it. A lot of the ladies I talk to will also have Hashimoto's or fibromyalgia or something like that. So it's just really, for me, about creating an entire body wellness, as opposed to just concentrating just on the bladder. So it's really helpful to have a supportive partner, which I try to be along the way. And a lot of women also say, even though they may have a fantastic doctor or pelvic floor physical therapist, just talking to someone who's actually been through it and knows the pain that they're going through is very helpful as well.
Yeah, and has been able to come through the other side and
Yes.
heal your own self.
Yes, exactly. But
Yeah.
I do talk also a lot about, just because of the questions that I get, like, how to prevent UTIs naturally, overactive bladder, because a lot of the same foods on the interstitial cystitis diet also come into play if you have overactive bladder. So, so kind of bladder health in general is what I talk about on my social media, as well as disease prevention, happiness, mindset tips, things like that.
Yeah, yeah. And UTIs, I've also definitely come into contact with that being very emotion and mental based
Mm-hmm.
manifestations too. It's not only about like the physical bacteria that gets into the urinary tract. It could also be a person's relationship and mindful status of their genital organs, usually, or
Mm-hmm.
some kind of um, sexual thoughts that they have, or thoughts around sex, I should say, because a lot of the UTIs can be triggered by sexual intercourse because of the physical act, but also because of the mental and emotional ties.
Yes, as a matter of fact, last summer I was on this Yoni Power Summit. So it was a whole week of women talking about yoni health or feminine health. And so I was actually, what I talk about as a life coach was goal setting for healing. So that was what my specialty was for the week. But yeah, it's definitely a whole variety of issues that can come into play.
Mm-hmm. And when you mentioned like those inflammatory triggers in the diet and the IC diet, and the fact that it might also be autoimmune in pathophysiology, that just made me think of how almost all of our manifestations of disease have to do with some kind of inflammatory reaction in one way or another. And they're just kind of weak points in a person's individual physiology that will make it
Mm-hmm.
manifest in one way or another, whether it's one autoimmune disease or another, or cancer, or pain. A lot of it has to do with inflammation, which can be mediated by food and lifestyle.
Absolutely. And another thing I share a lot about is reducing toxins. That's like a big thing for me. That's a really big non-negotiable in my health. My mom is a two-time breast cancer survivor. My sister's had breast cancer. We don't have the BRCA1 gene or anything like that. But for me, oh gosh, it's been quite a while that I just stopped using toxins in my skincare, my makeup. From there, it went to like reducing toxins in my home. So that's kind of a big thing for me as well. And I've talked to women who even say, oh my gosh, I've had like a bladder trigger after baths at night because like there's so much fragrance and chemicals in their, what they're using to bathe. So that's another thing to really be mindful of as well when dealing with bladder pain, because basically the bladder is like a holding tank for urination. So when you're detoxifying, all the toxins that you're taking in go right through that bladder. So if it's already irritated, it can become even more irritated by the toxins that you're absorbing through your skin. A lot of them can't be avoided, like especially, the air that you breathe or sometimes the food that you eat, but you can control what you put on your body. So that's one other thing that I talk about a lot as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That
Mm-hmm.
people think that the skin is a good barrier, but it actually does let in a lot more than we think when we apply all these products.
I know. When you really think about it, it's the largest organ, and when you think like even of like a Bivel dot, it's just this tiniest little patch that you're putting on to absorb estrogen. And think about when you're putting cream over your entire body, it's definitely being absorbed.
Right. And what we learned in pharmacy school, it's one of the areas that a drug can penetrate, which is why, like you mentioned, a lot of the patches with medicine is used because
Mhm.
some of the lipophilic things definitely penetrate that barrier.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, so tell us a little bit more about the course. Is it mostly one-on-one sessions with you, or is it self-education and self-paced modules and then some sessions with you?
It's self-paced, and some women, purchase the course, and I reach out to them, and they wanted to just do it on their own. A lot of ladies I continue to work with, and I'll tell them, I'll work with you until your bladder heals. I have a lot of podcast coming up in April. So I am going to be adjusting the price of the course as well. And I am always free for a 20-minute consultation. So I talk to a lot of women just to kind of talk to each other and see where they're at, if they're ready to delve into something like this. I've talked to women in the past who say, you know, I'm really good with the diet and some of the lifestyle changes, but they feel that they're kind of held back with some of the mindset. So that's where we work together, and we'll just basically talk. I mean, a lot of times when I talk with my clients, they really know what to do with, you know, the diet, that type of thing. But I'm really there, just like I said, as a life coach, to really just encourage them to keep moving forward and have that belief that they can heal, because healing definitely isn't linear. So, you know, there's good days and bad days. And with IC, it always just feels like one step forward, two steps back. But if you just keep moving forward, you'll see that you are really healing. And interestingly enough, a lot of the ladies who reach out to me, it happens to be just either before a trip or after a trip, because it really just interferes with your life. I mean, just for myself, you know, as a young mom, going to baseball games with my boys, like I would be spending so much time in the bathroom. I would have to have another family member there with me in case they got hit with the ball, or my husband would come home from work and say, oh, there's a business dinner we have to go to and you have to come with me. You know, it's for spouses as well. And I would just dread it, because you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm getting up from the table every 15 minutes. Like, what are his colleagues going to think? It's so embarrassing. And I always say he was probably like behind the scenes saying, you know, my wife has a bladder condition or something, but, you know, I didn't know that. And it's just horrific. And it's just, there's so much shame around it, and women just feel so alone. So we just really work on things like that too, just to kind of ease that frustration and just to keep moving forward, and just talk about like different coping strategies. So things like that are what I work with my clients.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad enough to be suffering through this condition, but then also like the constant fear of what others think, and, you know, fear of judgment, and that you're not, you know, you're not a healthy person, and they see you as not a healthy person, or they see you as less than, you know, like a normal human. There's always that fear. So how do you incorporate these mindset practices? Do you do like journal prompts or meditation prompts with, you know, similar white light healing that you mentioned?
Yes. Yeah. We talk about doing the meditation daily. And then for myself, like just to this day, I like to wake up early, read, you know, different books, journal. So I'll help my clients with that, kind of get into some sort of a mindfulness practice. I have there's probably about 100 different affirmations that I've created right around bladder healing. And so for affirmations, I always say you have to believe them. So it may not be, you know, I am healed. It may be, I am doing everything I can to heal, or something like, you know, the people that I have the resources to have the people help me to heal, or something like that. But, you know, there's like 100 different ones. And what I really like to do, I've kind of screenshotted them. Sometimes some of the women that I talk to on Instagram, I'll just send them like some affirmations, you know, just as like, just a fun thing. Like on Monday, you know, like if somebody's saying they're having a bad day, even if they aren't my client, I'll be like, hope your Monday's better. Here's some affirmations. Hope these are helpful, or something like that. So I really love doing things like that too. But I'm really big into affirmations. I think just speaking positively over your health it's just such a powerful thing.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned that you finally made the big jump and now you're leaving retail. So what are your current plans for your career?
Well, the funny thing is, I think just because I've been working for so long and just have led like this hectic pace, that I'm just kind of just taking everything day by day and just seeing where it's going. So I am working with clients. I'm doing a lot on Instagram. I have a lot of affiliates that I'm working with. So I'm super excited about that. Just sharing products that can be helpful to the women that I work with and to my followers as well. So doing a lot of work with affiliates. You know, I talk about different supplements a lot. I'm a big proponent of D-mannose for soothing bladder pain and also preventing UTIs. So, and just content creation, spending time with my family, just taking time for myself for self-care after, having such a hectic schedule for so long. So I love it. I'm having a blast. And I meet so many wonderful women. So aside from the pharmacists that I talk to and women with bladder pain, I also do a lot in the midlife community. So I've been meeting just tons of women who are in midlife like myself and just kind of moving into a different future for themselves. And so that's been really super fun too.
Nice. So what are your plans for the future of your business, and what would your advice be for students or pharmacists that are also looking to like spread into other areas of expertise and consulting?
I think it's a great way to go. When I was first on Instagram, I was sharing about just general health and wellness. But since I kind of went with a specialty, which is bladder health, I definitely have been more people reaching out to me, to represent their products. Some of them, a lot of them, I will say, are vitamins, and a lot of them don't really fit into the profile of what I can share with women with a painful bladder, especially if they have high amounts of vitamin C. But I just really feel like as being seen as an expert, more people will reach out to you. So I definitely encourage that. And really look at something in your own life that has been a big transformation. So maybe, even if it was something like you had migraines, and you've overcome them, maybe you can be a pharmacist who specializes in people who have headaches or whatever it may be, but just look at where you were able to transform. Or maybe you had Hashimoto's. I know there's a lot of pharmacists who specialize in thyroid or in hormones. So just whatever it may be, but I really feel having that specialty is, even if it's fitness, just a great way to go.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a few more minutes, I just have a couple
Sure.
more rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
All right. So what is your overall mission, and where does your passion come from for your mission?
My overall mission is just to have people live the fulfilled lifestyle that they want. So what I was touching on before is, because I think a lot of women have a hard time traveling with IC, they're not able to spend time with their family while they're traveling, and it becomes very frustrating. So I just want to be able to share with people that they can live the fulfilled life they desire. They don't have to be held back by disease. Even if you have a chronic condition or your genes may predispose you to something, it doesn't mean that that has to be your life. So you can overcome that through diet, through lifestyle, through mindset changes. Your world is your oyster. And that's my hope, is just to let people know that they can create the life that they desire. They can lead that fulfilled life and keep moving forward with it.
Yeah, beautifully said.
Thank you.
Okay. What's the number one thing listeners can do to improve their life right now?
I think just look at their diet and reduce sugar. I'm going with reduce sugar because I talk a lot about this on my page, and I go with the American Heart Association recommendation, which is 25 grams for women and 37.5 grams for men. And a lot of people have come to me and said, Lisa, that is way too generous. Like, you are too generous with your sugar numbers. You should go below that. But as a pharmacist, I really believe in these numbers from the American Heart Association, because I think once you start looking at labels and reducing your sugar, once you get to that 25 grams per day, you are going to get even lower. You're going to go to that lower sugar level, which can really reduce inflammation. But reducing sugar is just so important on so many levels, for not only heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancer prevention, just to boost your immune system. We're in this time right now where everybody's so worried about the coronavirus, that just keeping your body healthy by reducing that sugar, that's the number one thing for me.
Yeah, because you're also reducing a burden that, and an inflammatory burden at that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
What is a favorite pastime or hobby of yours?
Oh, I think just my favorite pastime right now is we just downsized. So just taking a walk. I honestly have always said, I wish that I lived in New York City or California where you can walk everywhere. And that's not so accessible in a neighborhood in Arizona. So now, because I'm in a townhouse that's like a little bit more closer to stores. It's a little bit more suburban. I can walk to the library. There's a library like not even a mile from my house. I love walking to the library, walking to the store, and just picking up what I need for dinner. So right now I'm just kind of doing self-care through walking, but I love reading. I'm just like obsessed with books. I have, I'm supposed to be simplifying, and I'm really into like not having a lot of extra things, especially since we've downsized. But I just went to the bookstore and bought 3 books the other night. So I love to read, self-development mostly.
Yeah. I've been transitioning to my Kindle, even though I was also resistant for a long time. But
I know I need
yeah,
to do that. I just like to have the book in hand.
I know. But also with a baby, it's much more convenient to just like hold it in one hand, or like if you're on the train, like holding it and flipping in one hand. Than if you're standing and you can't find a seat and you can't like open up a
That's
book.
true.
So
That's
I
true. I'm
found
going to
it,
have to go to the Kindle soon.
yeah. And the screen glare is like not there, so it's not bad in your eyes.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. What's your favorite beverage to drink?
Oh my gosh, this is going to sound so boring, but it's water, because with IC, there's just so many limitations because I can't have carbonation. I can't have anything, fruit juices, alcohol, coffee. So it's either for me water, or I do have a detox tea with milk thistle in the morning. And I love putting a little coconut or almond milk in there with a ton of cinnamon. So that's my kind of specialty go-to drink if I want something fun.
Nice. So just to go back a little bit to the restrictions. So once you kind of overcome the large inflammation that's going on, you still have to have a maintenance diet and eliminate like a very restrictive diet. That is that correct to say?
I personally do, not as strict as as I was in the past, but I mean, a lot of women who have healed their bodies and do a lot of like Chinese medicine and supplements, things like that, say that once the inflammation is gone, that you can go back to somewhat more of a normal diet. But a lot of these women are leading very healthy lifestyles. So they're not having, you know, diet sodas and bread or anything like that. They're eating very clean, healthy diets. But for myself, I pretty much still stick to the IC diet because I just never want to go back to the place where I was. So I have not had a glass of orange juice in probably, you know, over 25 years. And I just really eliminate a lot of those foods that I'm not supposed to have, but I'll have a bite or two, you know, if my family's Italian, so if we're having dinner, I'll just put like a tiny bit of tomato sauce. There's a product called Pre-Leaf, which is calcium glycerophosphate that you can use to reduce acid. So sometimes if I am having like an acidic dinner with more tomato sauce or something, you know, more spicy or acidic, something like that, I'll have a little bit of Pre-Leaf. I'll take a few Pre-Leaf tablets, but I do like, I really just treat my bladder like it's gold. I really just like to keep it on an even keel. So whatever I can do to do that is what I go with.
All right. So Lisa, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing everything that you know with us. Well, not everything, but just sharing what you do. And please tell the listeners how they can learn more about your work and get in touch with you directly.
Oh, thank you. You can reach me on Instagram or Facebook at The Fulfilled Pharmacist, or you can go to my website, ditchbladderpain.com. And I have a 35-page free report on 5 ways to, easy ways to ditch bladder pain. It talks a lot about the diet there, or you can message me there. But really the best way is Instagram. I'm on Instagram a lot of the day. And I really will take every message there. I'll find it there. So if you can find me at The Fulfilled Pharmacist, that would be great.
Awesome. So I'll include all of those ways in the show notes. And again, thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day. It's been
You
really
too. Thank
fun.
you so much. It's been really fun. It was a great way to start my morning.
Awesome. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you.